Let us chant Shloka number 67. Idam tena tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrushave vachyam na cha mam yaha abhyasuyati. So we have now begun the Palashruti. Gita also has Palashruti. Every text in our Shastras has Palashruti. So from 67 onwards, Krishna in a way begins the concluding portion of the Gita. 18th chapter is the summary of all summaries. Ishvare kartrita buddhihi sattvopadeyatantime swakarma parinamascha shastra sarartha uchyate. This is the summary shloka of the 18th chapter from Gitartha Sangraha of Yamunacharya. Let us briefly look at our journey through the 18th chapters until the Charama Shloka, Shloka 66. 18th chapter is organized in a way that Krishna ensures not only to give us a recap of some of the key principles that he taught in all the 17 chapters, but he also provides the foundation for Charama Shloka. So there are two objectives for 18th chapter. One, it is a summary of summaries, where Krishna once again summarizes karma, jnana, bhakti, which were given in detail through 17 chapters. So therefore, all the 17 chapters, when we put together and cull out key messages from these 17 chapters, we find them in the 18th chapter. So this is one objective. The other objective of 18th chapter is also to prepare the foundation for the Charama Shloka. So when we look at the way 18th chapter is organized, the first 12 shlokas of the 18th chapter, Krishna takes the opportunity to clarify the principle of sannyasa. Sannyasa, tyaga. Very, very difficult to comprehend these two principles. Krishna at length discusses the principle of renunciation throughout the Gita. Gita Shastra, the central message is tyaga, sannyasa. But then the principle is so very profound that it is not easy for us to comprehend, and even if we comprehend, to practice also becomes very difficult. So therefore, in the 18th chapter, which is the summary of summaries, Krishna devotes 12 shlokas, 1 to 12. He clarifies, reclarifies what is sannyasa, what is tyaga, and establishes one fundamental fact. Sannyasa is not about walking away from our duties. It comes out loud and clear. So, therefore, whoever misunderstands Gita, that Gita is only for those who have retired from life, it once again clarifies that it is for those, more for those who are actively involved in life and living, not for those who have retired from life. So he once again clearly demonstrates that Gita Shastra is very, very important for those who are engaged in performing worldly activities, performing their worldly duties. So he clarifies the principle of sannyasa, principle of tyaga. Shlokas 1 to 12. From 13 to 17, Krishna takes up the topic of kartrutva, which once again has been a repeatedly revisited topic throughout the Gita. kartrutva, doership. Krishna talks about the what, the why, and the how of akartrutva, non-doership. All of us understand why non-doership is important, but it is not easy for us to assimilate and internalize non-doership very easily. And between 13 and 17, Krishna once again visits this topic of non-doership, akartrutva anusandhana, and clearly establishes the fact which is Ishware kartrita buddhihi. Ultimately, the supreme karta, the ultimate karta is Krishna. From that point, we are all kartas, but we are all only cooperative kartas. The ultimate karta, the doer, the supreme doer is Krishna himself. So the why, the how, and the what of akartrutva is explained. This is where Krishna also talks about the 5 causal factors, and there we clearly understand why we are not the only karta. Panchaitani mahabaho karanani nibodhame. Every action that we do, we are not the only doer. There are 4 other factors. The Jivatma is only one factor. Paramatma is the main factor. So Krishna talks about all the 5 factors. So between 13 and 17, he clarifies non-doership, and we clearly understand now why we are not the only doers. And then from 18 to 39 is a brilliant exposition on the art and science of right actions. This is a masterpiece which has to be visited, revisited multiple times, because it is so very relevant to us for our day-to-day life and living. Krishna analyzes our actions threadbare, a scientific analysis of actions. If he looks into the 3 triggers for every action, jnanam, jneyam, parijnata, and then 3 components of actions, karanam, karma, karta. He takes all the 6 components and he addresses each of these components for us to understand how the fundamental building blocks of every action. So very scientific. And then he goes into focusing on those factors of action which can be transformed. All of us have the same opportunity given, irrespective of where we are. All of us have the same opportunity to go to where we should be. All of us may be at different places because of our past. We are where we are because of our past. It doesn't matter where we are today. What matters is we recognize where we are and we recognize where we need to go. And in order for the transformation to happen, he focuses on 3 important factors: jnanam, karma, karta. And then he analyzes them based on the 3 gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Why? For the purposes of our understanding that only when we cultivate sattva, then only with sattvika jnana, sattvika karma, the karta can become a sattvika karta, and only then we can make progress on the spiritual path. Until then, we would only be struggling. So therefore, he analyzes threadbare the actions and he classifies jnana, karma, karta based on the 3 gunas. Not only that, he takes up 2 very important, unique human endowments, very unique to us, which are buddhi, dhriti, which differentiates us from every other living being. And he classifies buddhi and dhriti based on the 3 gunas. And finally, he also takes up the outcome of every action, which is sukha, rather the intended goal. Every action that we do, howsoever trivial, howsoever significant, ultimately the goal is sukha. And he also classifies sukha based on sattva, rajas, and tamas. So shlokas 18 to 39, Krishna dissects and takes the action, zooms into every component of an action, and gives us a framework as to how we can cultivate sattva guna and perform right actions. Ishvare kartrita buddhihi sattvopadeyatantime. So, two key topics from 1 to 17, from 18 to 39. Then from 40 to 45, Krishna takes up the most misunderstood topic of Varna Dharma. And he shows how Varna Dharma is so very important for spiritual progress. This is where we understand the relationship between the two dharmas. Throughout the Gita, we get to see different dimensions of dharma. But broadly, dharma can stand for two things. Dharma stands for duty. Dharma stands for order. These are two high-level definitions of dharma. Dharma as duty that we need to perform, duty that is ordained to us, and dharma as order that exists in the world. Now, both these dharmas are interrelated. Only when there is order in society, we can perform our dharmas without any obstacles. And only when we perform our dharmas, we contribute to establishing order in society. We very well see in Kali Yuga how, because of disorder in society, it becomes very difficult for us to do our dharma. And how, because of us not performing our dharma, disorder is escalating in society. These two dharmas are related, and Krishna establishes through his exposition on Varna Dharma how by each one of us performing our dharma, individual duty, we contribute to establishing order, harmony in society. No, Ramarajya, which we are once again talking of, is all about harmony, order in society. And that harmony in society is only possible when every individual performs their dharma. Each of us have an obligation to do our dharma to contribute to harmony. That is why dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. When we protect dharma, dharma protects us. We protect dharma by doing our duty, and when we do our duty and protect dharma, dharma will protect us by enabling us continuing to do our duty. 40 to 45, by revisiting Varna Dharma, Krishna establishes this relationship between duty, dharma, and dharma as order in society. From 46 to 60 is the important topic of Swakarma Parinamaha, transformation of Swakarma. When Swakarma is rooted in Dharma, it translates, it transforms into Kainkarya, Krishna Kainkarya. So, how that transformation of whatever we do into to Krishna Kainkarya can happen is taken up between 46 and 60. Ishvare kartruta buddhihi sattvopadeyatantime swakarma parinamascha shastra sarartha uchyate. Then the fourth important segment of the chapter is Shastra Sarartha. Shastra, the very essence of all Shastras, which is hidden in all the Shastras. That is why before that, between Shlokas 61 and 63, there is a small segment in between. He introduces one small segment between, he directly does not jump to Shastra Sarartha. There is one small segment, 61 to 63, where Krishna once again establishes that his will is supreme and it is his grace that runs this entire world. His will and his grace, his understanding of Bhagavat Kripa, understanding of Bhagavat Sankalpa are so very important. So therefore, before we journey into Shastra Sarartha, he once again revisits the topics of Bhagavat Sankalpa and Bhagavat Kripa. And then Shastra Sarartha, 64, 65, 66. sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shunu me paramam vachaha ishtosi me dhridamiti tato vakshyami te hitam. 64th shloka, he gives a caveat before Shastra Sarartha. He says, hey Arjuna, sarva guhyatamam bhuyaha. This is the most confidential knowledge that I am sharing with you because ishtosi me dhridamiti. So you are very dear to me. And then he shares two shlokas, Shastra Sarartha, law of divine love and the law of surrender. Manmana bhava madbhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyante pratijane priyosi me sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarvapapebhyah mokshaishyami masuchaha. With that, Krishna's teachings are concluded. Then he goes on to Shloka 67. Now, after giving the Shastra Sarartha, then Krishna gives a caveat. Before starting his Phalashruti, Krishna says, hey Arjuna, idam te na tapaskaya, na bhaktaya kadachana, na nacha ashrushrushave vachyam, nacha mamyah abhyasuyati. Hey Arjuna, I have taught you this Shastra, but under no condition this knowledge, this Shastra should not be, under no condition it can be imparted to those, and he gives a list of those to whom this Shastra cannot be imparted. Now, let's look at what the shloka says, and then we will discuss as to why Krishna, what Krishna is saying and why he is saying what he is saying. Who are those to whom the Shastra should not be imparted? It fits our description very well. But then we will understand what actually Krishna is saying. He says, idam te na atapaskaya. He is now giving the list of those who do not qualify to receive the Shastra. Atapaskaya, abhaktaya, ashushrushrave, and then he says, nachamam yaha abhyasuyanti. Now, atapaskaya, those who do not observe austerities, those who are not disciplined in their life and living. Tapaha. Now, tapas, we see throughout the Gita that Krishna places a lot of emphasis on tapas. No, throughout our Shastras, not only Gita. Vitam tapaha, satyam tapaha, shrutam tapaha, shantam tapaha, dhanam tapaha, yajnam tapaha. The Upanishads say that tapas is the crowning glory of all activities aimed at liberation. Without tapas, there is no liberation possible. Krishna, therefore, atapaskaya, those who do not observe austerities, who do not do tapas, they do not qualify for this Shastra. Do not impart this Shastra to them. Tapaskaya. Na abhaktaya. Those who are not devoted to me do not impart this Shastra. Those who do not love Krishna do not qualify. Nacha ashushrushrave vachyam. Those who do not engage in rendering service, they do not qualify. Nachamamyah abhyasuyati. Abhyasuyati, those who are envious of Krishna, those who deride him, those who find fault with him, those who say he doesn't exist, those who go to any length to make him inferior. All kinds of examples. So he says, now we need to understand, why is Krishna, after giving all teachings, all of a sudden is coming up with an injunction, very clear declaration as to why this Shastra should not be imparted to those who do not qualify. Now, we need to understand this at different levels. First and foremost, Krishna here is placing a guideline for how Shastras have to be learned, assimilated, and practiced. It is an age-old practice that study of Shastras, there is a process involved. Just like any education is process-driven. We cannot expect an undergraduate student to solve a complex differential equation which should be solved by a PhD maths student. There are levels, and there is a process by which one learns a particular subject and acquires knowledge. So what is applicable to a PhD student cannot be taught to an LKG. That is the reason why Shastras very clearly talk about a process to acquire jnana, acquire knowledge. Now, if we look at what the process is, Krishna is giving those guidelines. Atapaskaya. Without self-discipline, there cannot be acquisition of knowledge. Even coming to a satsang requires a lot of self-discipline and sacrifice of many things. Therefore, mind, body, mind, and intellect all have to be trained. All have to be disciplined to acquire knowledge. So tapas becomes so very important. Abhaktaya. Also, bhakti, love towards Krishna, also has to be cultivated. If somebody does not even accept that Bhagavan is there, exists, there is no point to even teach Gita Shastra to them. Abhaktaya. Ashaddadhana purushah dharmasyasya parantapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vatmani. Krishna in the 9th chapter says, Ashaddadhana purushah dharmasyasya parantapa. Ashaddadhana purusha, one who does not have Shraddha in Bhagavan. Now, we keep asking this question, is it enough to be good? If those who are good, is it okay? Now, goodness is important, godliness is even more important. Recognition of Bhagavan is so very important. If there is no Shraddha in Bhagavan, then there cannot be liberation. Then what happens? Samsara continues. Aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vatmani. Avajananti mam mudaha manushim tanumashritam. Avajananti mam mudaha. Krishna says, Avajananti mam mudaha manushim tanumashritam. Avajananti. Jananti means knowing. Ajananti means ignorance. Avajananti means misunderstanding. Three important things. Jananti, knowing. Ajananti, not knowing, ignorance. Avajananti means misunderstanding. Ignorance is also an obstacle. Misunderstanding is a greater obstacle. Misunderstanding, misconception of Bhagavan is even more bigger, greater obstacle than even ignorance. If somebody is ignorant, it is easy for them to acquire knowledge than those who have strong misconceptions. Somebody who is an ignorant but not an atheist can easily gain knowledge. But somebody who has strong conception of atheism, very difficult for them, because that becomes a greater obstacle. So therefore, Krishna says, Avajananti Mamuda. They do not understand that Bhagavan has a divine form. He is formless and he has a form. Not everyone can easily understand this. Manushim tanumashritam parambhava majanantaha mamabhuta maheshwaram. No, we can keep going asking him, how can he have a form when he is formless? How can he be formless when he has a form? We can keep asking the question without really understanding. That is why he is Bhagavan and that is why we are Jivatmas. Throughout the Gita, he gives clarity on how he can have a divine form and at the same time his form. And also, Manushim Avajanantimam Mudaha. That is why the glory of Archa cannot be experienced without proper jnana. The more jnana we have, the greater our experience of Bhagavan's divine forms. When we go to any temple, our experience of Bhagavan is even more greater when we have more knowledge, when we know him more. So Krishna very clear is abhaktaya. The love to him can only blossom when we know him. Without knowing him, we cannot love him. Knowledge matures into bhakti. Abhaktaya. Then it goes on to ashushrūshave. Ashushrūshave. Those who do not engage in service. Engaging in service to Bhagavan and to acharyas. Krishna very clearly says in the 4th chapter, Tadviddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. To know, to get tattva jnana, one needs to necessarily surrender. Pariprashnena sevaya. These are two very important words. Not just prashnena. Pariprashnena. Prashnena is inquiry. Pariprashnena, submissive inquiry. Our Shastras encourage a debate, discussion, question and answers, but the questions have to be in the right spirit of seeking truth, realizing truth. Two very important things, receptivity and surrender. Both are important for acquiring knowledge and the knowledge maturing into bhakti. Receptivity is important to receive information. Receptivity can result in information, but it is surrender which results in transformation. If we want the information to help us in transformation, then we also need to surrender. That is why Krishna says, Tadvitti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Do service to the acharya and surrender, and in the process of surrendering, don't just surrender and not ask questions. Keep continuing to ask questions. Inquire. Inquiry is so very important. Each of us have been bestowed with intelligence that needs to be used. There is no demand for blind acceptance of anything. Inquire, inquire, inquire. Ask, seek, search. Revelation will happen. And that is why he says, Shushrūshave vāchyam. And then he says, finally, Nachamam yaha abhyasuyanti. Those who do not accept him, don't even try to waste your time with them. Those who continue to deny him, ridicule him, question him. There are so many questions. Why did Rama do this? Why did Krishna do this? Why did Varaha do this? Why this happened? Why that happened? All that people can keep continuing to ask questions. Everyone who asks these questions would not have touched any of this sacred texts. The people who make noise are those who have never read even a single shloka from Ramayana or Mahabharata or the Gita, but they are the ones who make noise. Krishna says, don't waste your time with those people. Now, this is one level of understanding. Immediately then we are all little alarmed. So which means, looks like many of these, we also seem to be fit in these categories. Tapaskaya, Avaktaya. So is Krishna saying all these are not qualified? But then somehow we all seem to have gone through the journey of the 18 chapters of Gita. How can then this be possible? This is where we need to understand that Krishna is talking about the shlokas from 64 to 66, not the whole of the Gita. Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shrunu me paramam vachaha. This paramam vachaha is where he is saying one needs to be very, very cautious in terms of who to impart to, how to impart to. Krishna could have started the Gita, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vajaham tva sarvapapebhyo moksha ishyami ma suchahaya Arjuna. Gita would have finished. All that Krishna should have done is just one shloka. Arjuna asked one question, Karpanya dosho upatasvabhavaha prachamitvam dharma sammoda chetaha. What dharma? I do not understand. What is dharma? Krishna could have easily answered, Arjuna, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja, I am dharma. Aham tva sarvapapebhya moksha ishyami, I will take care of you. Finished. Why 700 shlokas? Now waited for 18 chapters And in the 18th chapter, 66th Shloka, which means there has to be a lot of preparation that was needed until someone, otherwise you go to someone who has not been through this journey and say, surrender to Krishna, they will say, why should I surrender to Krishna? Why should I surrender to Krishna? And they may also question, Krishna is saying, Mam ekam sharanam vaja, why ekam Krishna? Why should I only surrender to him? All these questions will come. Sarvadharman paritya, why should I surrender everything? All these questions will be asked, and one will not be in a position to even understand the answers if one is not adequately prepared. If that preparation is not there, then the declaration will be misunderstood and misused. It also will be misused. How it will be misused? Aham tva sarva papebhya mokshaishyami ma suchaha. Krishna has given assurance. Immediately, now we say, Krishna has given assurance. Whatever papa karmas are there, mokshaishyami, he is going to liberate me. Now, it seems a father had two sons. A very, very rich father. Father went to first son, who is very righteous, very diligent, very sincere. And then he told him, he gave him a very important assignment, a very risky, important assignment. And he said, please go ahead and do this. Let me also assure you, come what may, I will protect you. Even if you lose money in this process, I am there. I will stand with you. Go ahead. And then before he went, and he had also another son who was a completely spoiled, corrupted, self-indulgent son, and he knows. Therefore, he told this first son, don't go and share this assurance that I gave you to the other one. Why? If the same assurance goes to the other one, come what may, I will protect you. Immediately, he is going to be indulged in every wrong deeds, and he will cross ethical borders and will be a disaster. So, somebody cannot approach the father and say, how can you do this? How can you restrict this being given to the other son or only one son? Similarly here, Krishna is saying, Mokshaishyami masucha ham tva sarva papebhya mokshaishyami. Someone can misuse this assurance that is given. So therefore, Krishna is not hiding anything here. He only says that we need to grow up in order for us to understand and apply what Krishna is teaching. It is like a father who has wealth. He is not going to show the whole wealth to his young child. He will wait until the child grows up, and when the time is right, then the wealth is handed over. Until then, the wealth is not handed over. This treasury, this wealth, Krishna is handing over to someone who has to be highly responsible. With great power comes great responsibility. Charama Shloka is a great power that is given to us, great assurance. With that comes great responsibility. Therefore, he says, you have to exercise caution. You have to exercise caution with whom you share. Essentially, we all know IQ and EQ, intelligent quotient, emotion quotient. Only when the IQ is higher, you can ask somebody to do some complex analysis, complex math. IQ has to grow, only then one can get into. Similarly, only when EQ grows, somebody can be expected to engage constructively with managing their emotions. Similarly, Krishna says one's SQ also should be high, spiritual quotient. Only when the spiritual quotient is high, one will accept, understand, assimilate. When Krishna says Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja, if one is dipped in worldliness, it becomes very difficult for one to surrender to Krishna and Krishna alone. And even unquestioningly surrender without asking any questions. It takes years to come to a stage where when Krishna says Mami ekam sharanam vraja, it means yes Krishna. Tavayeva. Therefore, Krishna here is making a caveat to basically say, "Hey Arjuna, what I have given you is a treasure which needs to be carefully handled. Handle it with care." He's not saying we need to understand Krishna wants to make the Gita open to all. At the same time, when it comes to the most confidential part of the Gita, one needs the right amount of preparation. That is the reason why we cannot straight away start a study of the Gita with 18 chapter and straight away jump to the Charama Shloka and then say, we have completed the Gita, because one cannot understand, assimilate and not misuse. So therefore, he starts the Phalashruti by giving us this caveat. And then he goes on to talk about the rewards of those who study, practice, live, teach, share Gita. That we will see in the coming session. Om Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.